Coming to my favorite part, alpha error, beta error, and power of a study. Alpha error is probability of making type 1 error, that is a significance level of a test. Probability of rejecting null hypothesis when it's true, stating that there is an effect or difference when none exists. That is, null hypothesis is incorrectly rejected in favor of alternate hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis is accepted, but actually you should accept the null hypothesis. Also, type 1 error or alpha error is known as false positive. That is, first time boy cries wolf. First time boy cries wolf, the town believes there is a wolf. You remember that famous wolf story. That is easy to remember this. Type 1 error, first time boy cries wolf, the town believes there is a wolf, but there is not. It is a false positive error. Wolf here is equal to difference or effect. First time boy cries wolf, that is first time boy cries there is a difference. The town believes there is a wolf. That is, the town believes there is a difference. That alternate hypothesis should be accepted. But actually there is no difference. Null hypothesis should be accepted because it is true, but it gets rejected. Confidence level associated with confidence interval, that is probability that an estimate of population parameter is within certain specified limits of true value. Confidence level is 1 minus alpha. Then beta is probability of making type 2 error, failing to reject null hypothesis when it's false, stating that there is not an effect or difference when one actually exists. Second time boy cries wolf. Second time the boy cries wolf. The town believes there is no wolf, but actually there is a wolf. That is, what is there is a wolf. That is wolf. What was wolf? Wolf was a difference. So it was a difference. So null hypothesis should be rejected, but null hypothesis is not rejected. That is, the town believes there is no wolf. The town believes there is no difference. That is a problem. Type 2 error is when the town believes that there is no wolf or there is no difference, when actually there is a difference. That is, you fail to reject the null hypothesis and you fail to accept the alternate hypothesis, you fail to reject the null hypothesis when it's false. Second time boy cries wolf, the town believes there is no wolf, but there is one. This is also known as false negative error. Also easy way to remember that we all are inherently positive. We all have innocent, pure, positive beings. When we were small as kids and children, we had that innocence, that purity. We still have it within us. So always positivity comes first. When we come in this world, we come with a lot of positivity. But gradually, the negativity of the world, I would not call it negativity because the world is positive, but certain life experiences of ours make us negative. So type 1 is positive, that is false positive, and type 2 is negative, that is false negative. That is an easy way to memorize false positive and false negative error. False positive is alpha, type 1, and false negative is beta, type 2. Power is the power of a study is a probability of correctly rejecting a null hypothesis when it's false. That is 1 minus beta. If beta is failing to reject null hypothesis when it's false, obviously 1 minus beta will be probability of correctly rejecting null hypothesis when it's false and accepting the alternate one. That is 1 minus beta. So statistical power is 1 minus beta. That is rejecting a null hypothesis when it is false. Then steps in the sample size except adjust for selection bias. Yeah, this is not done. Yeah. Type 2 or beta error occurs. Yeah, when second time boy cries wolf, wolf. The town believes there is no wolf. That is, you fail to reject the null hypothesis. The town believes there is no difference, and you fail to reject the null hypothesis when in fact it is false. The null hypothesis is not rejected. Failing to reject the null hypothesis. Then exact calculation of design effect for a study parameter can take place after your, yes it can. Effect, obviously, design effect, that is outcome. Yes, true. Population variance can be estimated from pilot study and reports of previous studies. Yes, never guessing, never know. Recommended minimum level of power, yeah. At least you need a power of 80%. When I did a thesis, I was doing my MD, I think the statistical power in my case was 90% or 95%, something of that, yeah. But the minimum power you need 80% for a randomized controlled clinical trial. I didn't, like mine was an open label study. Randomized parallel groups open label study. Which I did it in association with the Department of Medicine and the Department of Psychiatry. So 3 departments are involved: my department, pharmacology, medicine, and psychiatry. Then in general, sample size formula takes into account the crude association between exposure and outcome, as well as the confounders. No, it doesn't. Not at all. False. Never. Confounders, no. Not at all. Exposure and outcome. Chalo. Then moving on to design effect of more than one needs to be considered in studies involving cluster sampling. Yes, cluster. Correct. Absolutely correct. Clusters you have to make if you have an effect of more than one. Which of the following necessary in sample size? All of the above, yes. Which of the following statement is false? As the magnitude of expected effect increases, the required sample size increases. Yeah, this is false. A type 1 error occurs. I told you first time boy cries, ah, wolf. That time, the town agrees that there is a wolf, but actually the boy was making a fool out of the town. So that is type 1 or alpha error. That is the boy cries wolf, the boy cries that the null hypothesis is true, and the town accepts it. But actually, the null hypothesis is false. So the null hypothesis, oh, sorry, the boy cries wolf, but actually, there is no wolf. The town believes it. So the null hypothesis is rejected when it is true. That is, the town believes there is a wolf, as I told you. Alpha is probability of making a type 1 error. Probability of rejecting null hypothesis when it's true. First time boy cries wolf, there the town believes there is a wolf, but there is no wolf. There is no wolf means there is no difference. If there is no difference, you should accept the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is rejected. The town believes there is a wolf, but actually there is no wolf. This is an actuality. So the null hypothesis should be rejected because actually, no, the null hypothesis should be accepted because actually there is no wolf. So no wolf means no difference. No difference means null hypothesis is true. Alternate hypothesis should be rejected. But here what do? We reject the null hypothesis. Which of the following is true about beta error? It is a probability of accepting. Yeah, true. You accept. Second time boy cries, ah! The town does not believe, but actually there is a wolf. That is, there is a difference. So it is the probability of accepting the null hypothesis when it is false. You accept something when actually it is false, it is wrong. That means there is a difference. The alternate hypothesis should be accepted. Probability of accepting the null hypothesis can also be stated as probability of not rejecting the null hypothesis when it is false. Type 2 error also known as false negative. I told you how to remember positive negative. Then all the following are essential statistical considerations for sample calculation except allocated budget. True. For each confounder or variable, 10% increase in sample size. Yes, this is a 10% rule. You don't remember this. I have told you about it, right? If I haven't, let me know in the comment section. True. The design effect should be calculated after completion of the study and it need not be counted at the design stage. False. No. It has to be counted at the design stage. Yes, definitely. When estimating sample size, we need to account for all of the above. Yeah. The power of a study can be defined as the probability of correctly rating null hypothesis when it is false. Yeah, that is 1 minus beta. Yeah. Then moving on to the following, we need to calculate sample size for analytical studies using some simple random sampling method except desired value estimated design effect. Yeah. Because design effect is the effect, the outcome. So we don't know that, right? Exactly. But if I want to estimate the prevalence of physical rate for what is the this answer will be 138. Yeah, you all know this formula, right? Then precision is described as a measure of how close an estimate is to the true value of a population parameter. Yeah, true. That's true. In a cross-sectional study, a group of researchers wanted to estimate the prevalence of cephalos for a resident E. coli. The prevalence was this much. Researchers wanted to estimate 20% relative precision, minimum, yeah, 1042. Okay, fine. Which of the following factors is not essential for calculating sample size? Need for statistical significance. Yeah, see, I told you. Even if your study is negative, no results at all, if you get no association, please publish it. We don't need statistically significant results. We need wrong results, meaning there is no correlation at all, that study should also be published. I strongly encourage it. Never ever, it should always be a positive thing. Okay. Statistical is not essential. Adjustments to calculate not be done for which of the hospital-based study. Yeah, hospital-based study we can do an intention to treat analysis. You can include the dropouts as well. State whether true or false a pilot study can get an estimate. Yeah, yes. Estimate is a very small scale study that is done. Yeah. Cross-sectional study aims to estimate hydrated liver disease caused by Echinococcus granulosus or dog tapeworm. Which of the following is not required for calculating the minimum required? Yeah, population variance is not required. True. Type 1 error, the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. The first time the boy cries wolf, everyone believes there is a wolf, but actually there is no wolf. That means actually there is no difference at all. That means the null hypothesis should be accepted because there is no difference at all. The alternate hypothesis should be rejected, but the probability of rejecting, people believe that there is a wolf, that is there is some difference, but actually there is no difference. First time boy cries wolf, everyone believes him, but they shouldn't have, the town shouldn't have, because actually there is no wolf, there is no difference. The null hypothesis should be accepted, but we reject it. Then moving on to ability of a study to detect correctly the presence of an association is known as power. Yeah, ability of a study to detect correctly the presence of an association is known as power. Standard deviation of a sampling distribution. Yeah, standard deviation. No, that is not. Bias is called systematic error. Yeah. False. Design effect is considered for which of the following sampling strategy? Cluster sampling. Yes, right, correct. The hospital-based cross-sectional study mean D dimer levels. Yeah, COVID-19 D dimer levels are a must. Yeah, when it was COVID. From previous literature, the standard deviation was this much. Mean 50, 95%. What is the minimum? Yeah, 62. Correct. Okay, bye.